Welcome to the deep dive. We're diving into the world of biotechnology today.
It's a fascinating field.
It really is. We're talking about engineering nature itself.
Not just using it. Yeah.
Right. Finding those biological catalysts.
Exactly. And figuring out the best ways to make them work.
Optimizing their environment.
Yeah.
And then purifying the results.
Exactly.
So it's a multi-step process, right?
It is. And it impacts so many areas of our lives.
And that's what we're going to explore today.
We are.
So are you ready to jump in?
I am.
Let's do it. One of the things that fascinates me about biotechnology is its potential to solve some of the biggest challenges facing humanity.
Like feeding a growing population.
Exactly. Traditional farming methods have their limitations.
They do.
So how can biotechnology help us increase food production?
Well, imagine this. Taking a single plant cell and growing an entire field of crops from it.
Wow, that sounds like science fiction.
It's called micropropagation, and it's based on this incredible ability of plant cells called totipotency.
Totipotent.
It means every cell has the potential to develop into a whole new plant.
Wow. So every carrot I eat could have been a whole carrot plant.
Exactly. It's like plant cloning, but on a much larger scale, and it's already being used commercially.
For which crops?
Tomatoes, bananas, apples, you name it.
That's amazing. So we could produce more food and ensure it's consistent in quality.
Exactly. And it can help with disease control, too.
How so?
Well, plants have this growing tip called the meristem.
Okay.
And it's often virus-free, even if the rest of the plant is infected.
So scientists can use this to create virus-free plants.
Exactly. They take the meristem, culture it in a lab, and boom, you have virus-free plants.
That's like hitting a reset button on plant health.
Exactly.
This is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And speaking of mind-blowing, what about combining different plants? Is it possible to create like a super plant?
You're talking about somatic hybridization. It involves fusing cells from different plants to create hybrids.
Like the tomato, right?
Exactly. That was a tomato-potato hybrid.
It didn't really take off, though.
It didn't, but the potential is there.
It is. Now, we can't talk about biotechnology without addressing the elephant in the room, GMOs.
Right.
There's a lot of debate surrounding them.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a simple explanation of what GMOs are?
Absolutely. A GMO is an organism whose genetic makeup has been altered in a way that wouldn't occur naturally.
So it's about tweaking genes to enhance certain traits.
Exactly. Think of it like giving a plant a genetic upgrade.
But some people worry that it's messing with nature.
I understand those concerns, but let's look at the potential benefits. GMOs can be engineered to be drought-tolerant, salt-tolerant, or pest-resistant.
So we could grow food in harsher environments and reduce our reliance on pesticides.
Exactly. And GMOs can help us use resources more efficiently, too.
Really? I thought they would require more water and fertilizer.
Not necessarily. Some are engineered to have a longer shelf life, which reduces food waste.
That makes sense.
And some improve nutrient uptake, so they need less fertilizer and water.
Wow, I didn't realize that. What about the nutritional value of GMOs?
Well, some are designed to be more nutritious. Golden rice is a good example.
Golden rice.
It's been engineered to produce beta-carotene, which our bodies convert into vitamin A.
Ah, that's important for preventing vitamin A deficiency.
Exactly.
It sounds like GMOs have a lot more to offer than I initially thought.
They do. Let's dive into some specific examples. Have you heard of beet crops?
Beet crops. Yeah, vaguely. Something about pesticides?
It's more than just spraying chemicals. Take beet cotton, for example.
Okay.
It's been modified with a gene from the bacterium Bacillus thuringiensis, which produces a protein that's toxic to certain insects.
So the plant makes its own insecticide.
Exactly. It's like using nature's own defenses.
That's brilliant. Less insecticide use, healthier environment. What's not to like?
Right. And another fascinating example is RNA interference.
RNA interference, or RNAi. I've heard the term, but I'm not sure what it is.
It's a natural defense mechanism in plants.
Against what?
Pests and pathogens.
Oh.
Think of it like this. Every cell has a communication system. RNA is the messenger carrying instructions from the DNA.
Right.
RNAi intercepts those messages. It stops them from reaching their target.
So it's like a cellular silencing system.
Exactly. And scientists have figured out how to manipulate this process.
Wow.
By introducing specific genes into a plant, we can trigger RNAi to target and silence essential genes in pests or pathogens.
So we're essentially hacking the pest's communication system.
Exactly. It's already being used successfully. For example, scientists have engineered tobacco plants resistant to a parasitic nematode,
A nematode.
a tiny worm that can damage crops.
This is fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
So far, we've mainly focused on plants. What about using biotechnology for human health?
That's where it gets even more exciting. We've seen breakthroughs in medicine thanks to biotechnology. One of the biggest is recombinant DNA technology.
Recombinant DNA technology. That sounds complicated.
It's actually simpler than it sounds. It involves manipulating DNA sequences and inserting them into host organisms, often bacteria.
So we're using bacteria as tiny factories,
Exactly. To produce medications.
like penicillin.
Penicillin is a natural antibiotic from a fungus. With recombinant DNA technology, we can go much further.
Okay.
These medications are often more effective and have fewer side effects because they're identical to human proteins. Insulin is a prime example.
Insulin is essential for people with diabetes. How did they manage before we could produce it in a lab?
They relied on insulin extracted from animals.
Which wasn't ideal, I mean.
Right. It could cause allergic reactions and wasn't a perfect match. Recombinant DNA technology allows us to engineer bacteria to produce human insulin.
Making treatments safer and more accessible.
Exactly.
That must have been a game changer for so many people. How did they get bacteria to make something as complex as human insulin?
It involves identifying the specific gene for insulin production in humans and inserting it into the bacteria.
Ah, I see.
It took some clever genetic engineering to make sure the bacteria produced functional insulin, but it was a major breakthrough.
It was. So we're using bacteria as tiny pharmaceutical factories. What other medical wonders has biotechnology given us?
Well, there's gene therapy. This is where we move from producing medications to actually correcting genetic defects.
Wow, so instead of treating symptoms, we're going straight to the source of the problem.
Exactly. It's like editing our genes to fix problems.
That sounds futuristic.
It does, and it's still early days, but there have been successes. One of the earliest was for ADA deficiency.
ADA deficiency. What's that?
It's a rare genetic disorder that affects the immune system.
How so?
People with this disorder lack a crucial enzyme for a healthy immune system. They're very susceptible to infections.
I see.
The first gene therapy trial involved taking their cells, inserting a functional copy of the missing gene, and putting those modified cells back into the patient.
So it's like giving their immune system a software update.
Exactly.
Did it work?
It did. It was a big step.
A big step.
But there were challenges. The effects weren't permanent, so patients needed repeat treatments.
I see.
The hope is that if we can get this gene into cells early in development, it could be a permanent fix.
Imagine curing genetic diseases at the source.
Imagine that.
But I'm sure there are ethical concerns with something this powerful.
Absolutely. Gene therapy raises a lot of questions about how we use such a powerful tool, but the potential benefits are enormous.
They are. It seems like we're also getting better at detecting diseases early, which is just as important as treating them.
You're absolutely right. Early detection is critical, and biotechnology has given us some incredibly sensitive tools. Two big ones are PCR and ELISA.
I've heard of PCR. Isn't that the one that amplifies DNA?
Exactly. PCR stands for polymerase chain reaction.
Right.
And it lets us make millions of copies of a specific DNA segment from a tiny sample.
So if you need more DNA to study, you just make more.
Precisely. This is very useful for detecting pathogens like viruses, even when there are only a few of them. It's how we test for things like HIV.
So PCR is about detecting the pathogens themselves. What about ELISA? What does that do?
ELISA, or enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, works differently. It relies on our body's immune response.
Remind me how that works again.
Our bodies produce antibodies, which are proteins that recognize and bind to specific invaders called antigens.
Right.
ELISA takes advantage of this binding to detect either the presence of an antigen or the antibodies against it.
So we're either finding the bad guys or the evidence that our body is fighting them.
Exactly.
That's clever.
It is. And these are just a few examples of how biotechnology is helping us detect diseases earlier and more accurately.
It's amazing how far we've come. We've talked about manipulating genes, engineering bacteria, and even hacking cellular communication. But we haven't even touched on animals yet.
You're right. There's a whole other world of biotechnology that involves transgenic animals.
Transgenic animals, you mean genetically modified animals?
Yes. And they're being used for some incredible things. One major application is understanding how genes work.
So by studying transgenic animals, we can learn more about ourselves.
Exactly. We can also use them to study diseases and test new therapies.
It's like having a living model to work with.
Precisely. And it's not just about studying diseases. Transgenic animals can also be used to produce valuable human proteins.
Like medications.
Yes. Think of Rosie, the transgenic cow.
Rosie.
She was genetically engineered to produce milk that contained a human protein used to treat a lung disease. Her milk was literally life-saving medicine.
Wow, that's incredible and a little unsettling at the same time. It shows how powerful this technology can be. What other applications are there?
We're even using transgenic mice in vaccine testing,
Oh, okay.
which could potentially reduce the need for primate testing.
That's a huge win for animal welfare. It seems like these transgenic animals are pretty versatile.
They are. They're also used in chemical safety testing.
How so?
By engineering animals to be more sensitive to certain substances, we can assess the safety of chemicals more efficiently.
So it's like we're using them as sentinels to warn us about potential dangers.
Exactly.
This is all so innovative. But I imagine there are ethical considerations with this as well.
Absolutely. The manipulation of living organisms always raises ethical questions, especially when it comes to animal welfare and the potential for unintended consequences.
It sounds like we need to be very careful and responsible with how we use this technology.
We do. And that brings us to another important aspect of biotechnology: biopiracy.
Biopiracy. That sounds intense. What's that all about?
It refers to the exploitation of biological resources and traditional knowledge, often from developing countries, for commercial gain without fair compensation.
So it's like stealing someone's intellectual property, but on a biological level.
Exactly. A classic example is the controversy surrounding basmati rice. An American company tried to patent this variety of rice, even though it had been cultivated for centuries in India and Pakistan.
They were trying to claim ownership of a rice variety that wasn't theirs.
Exactly. It was a clear case of biopiracy.
Wow.
And it highlights the need for international agreements to protect traditional knowledge.
It does. This has been an incredible journey so far.
It has.
We've gone from manipulating genes to engineering entire organisms. We've explored the potential of biotechnology in agriculture, medicine, and even food production.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
It's clear that with this great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely. Biotechnology has the potential to revolutionize our world. But we need to proceed with caution, ensuring that scientific progress goes hand in hand with ethical considerations.
Well said.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to need some time to process all of this. We've covered so much ground already.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's still so much more to explore.
There is. We've only just begun to explore the possibilities. It's remarkable how biotechnology has gone from focusing on individual genes to being able to manipulate entire organisms.
Yeah. It's like we've zoomed out from looking at a single puzzle piece to seeing the whole picture now.
Exactly. And speaking of the bigger picture, remember we were discussing transgenic animals. We talked about how they're being used in research and to produce medications. But they could also play a big role in food production, you know?
Really? How so?
Well, scientists are exploring ways to genetically modify animals to enhance the traits that could benefit food production.
Interesting. So what kind of traits are we talking about?
Imagine livestock that could grow faster, produce more meat or milk,
Gotcha.
or even be naturally resistant to diseases.
So like creating super cows or something.
Not exactly super cows, but the idea is similar. For instance, researchers have successfully introduced growth hormone genes from other species into pigs.
Interesting.
And the result is that the pigs grew larger and leaner.
So it's like giving them a genetic boost to kind of help them reach their full potential.
Exactly.
But wouldn't that raise some concerns about animal welfare? I mean, we don't want to be messing with animals just to get more food, right?
You raise a very valid point.
Yeah.
Any application of genetic modification in livestock has to prioritize animal welfare.
Of course, yeah.
It's not just about efficiency. It's also about ensuring that the animals are healthy and treated humanely.
Absolutely. It's a delicate balance that we need to be really careful about.
It is.
What other traits are scientists targeting when it comes to genetically modifying livestock?
Well, disease resistance is a big one.
Makes sense.
By making animals less susceptible to diseases, we can potentially reduce the reliance on antibiotics.
Oh, that's huge, right? Because antibiotic resistance is a growing threat.
Exactly.
And reducing antibiotic use in livestock is crucial for preserving the effectiveness of these drugs.
It is.
Are there any other potential benefits besides that?
Imagine this: milk or eggs that are naturally enriched with essential nutrients,
Okay.
or that have less cholesterol.
Oh, that's appealing.
Genetically modified animals could actually make that a reality.
That would definitely be a selling point for a lot of consumers.
It would.
Healthier and more nutritious food straight from the farm. But like with any new technology, I'm sure there are some concerns about genetically modified animals, right?
Of course. There are concerns about potential unintended consequences, the impact on biodiversity, and also the ethical implications of manipulating animal genomes.
So it seems like we need to have a much deeper conversation than just focusing on the benefits. We need to weigh the risks and the benefits and really have some open discussions about these concerns.
We need to have an open dialogue and make sure that any advancements that we make in this field are done ethically and sustainably.
Absolutely. This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the potential of biotechnology. I mean, we've gone from manipulating genes to engineering entire organisms.
We have.
And it's clear that it has applications in agriculture, medicine, food production. The list goes on and on.
It does. And we've only just begun to explore the possibilities.
But with all this progress, we can't forget about the ethical side of things.
You're absolutely right.
We need to think about the consequences of our actions.
We do. We've touched upon some ethical concerns already.
Right.
But I think it's worth highlighting a few key points that should be at the forefront of any conversation about biotechnology.
I agree. So what are some of the most important ethical issues we need to consider?
Well, one of the most pressing concerns is the potential for what we call unintended consequences.
Unintended consequences.
You see, when we manipulate living organisms, we're dealing with these incredibly complex systems that we frankly don't fully understand yet.
And that could have some pretty serious implications.
It could. And there's always a risk that our interventions could have unforeseen effects. Which could be harmful.
So we need to be really careful and humble.
Yes.
Recognizing that our knowledge is limited.
It is.
And that our actions can have ripple effects.
It can.
Throughout ecosystems and even future generations.
Exactly. And we also need to be mindful of the potential for exacerbating inequalities that already exist.
Well, that's a good point.
Biotechnology holds incredible promise.
It does.
But we need to ensure that those benefits are accessible to everyone.
Right. Not just a select few.
Not just a privileged few.
Yeah.
Access and equity are essential considerations.
They are. We can't let biotechnology become just another tool that divides society.
We can't.
You know, based on wealth or access to healthcare or other social determinants.
Exactly. And another concern is the potential for what we call the commodification of life.
Commodification of life.
As we develop these increasingly sophisticated biotechnologies, we need to be careful.
Yeah.
We don't want to start viewing living organisms, including humans, as mere commodities to be bought and sold and manipulated for profit.
That's kind of a scary thought.
It is a concerning thought.
Yeah. We want to make sure that biotechnology is used to enhance human well-being.
We do.
And not to exploit or devalue life in any way.
Absolutely. And this highlights the crucial role of regulation and oversight in this field.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, we need some rules.
We need robust frameworks in place. Right.
To guide the development and application of these technologies. To ensure that they're being used safely, ethically, and for the benefit of all humankind.
Regulation is essential, but it's not just about rules and regulations, is it? I mean, we also need to have open and honest discussions.
We do.
About the broader societal impacts of biotechnology.
You're absolutely right. We need to engage in these thoughtful and inclusive conversations.
Yes.
That involve not just scientists, but policymakers, ethicists, and the public at large.
We need to bring everyone to the table.
We do. We need to discuss the values that we want to uphold.
Yeah.
The risks we're willing to accept, and the future that we envision for ourselves.
It's a conversation that needs to happen globally.
It does.
Across disciplines.
Yes.
And across cultures.
Absolutely.
Because the choices that we make about biotechnology are going to have a profound impact.
They will.
On the world that we leave for future generations.
They will. This deep dive has been incredible, hasn't it?
It really has. We've explored the vast potential of biotechnology.
What do you have?
To address these huge global challenges. With the power it has to transform human health.
Yeah.
And all of the ethical considerations that we absolutely have to be thinking about.
We've talked about manipulating genes, engineering organisms, personalized medicine.
Yeah.
We even talked about the potential for human enhancement.
We did.
I mean, this field is just full of excitement and wonder,
It is.
but also a sense of responsibility.
It does come with a sense of responsibility.
It really does.
Biotechnology is a powerful tool.
It is.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill.
That's a good point.
It's up to us to guide its development and application.
Right.
And ensure that it serves humanity's best interests.
Well said. As we're wrapping up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a sense of wonder, but also a call to action.
Absolutely.
Biotechnology is a field that allows us to kind of marvel at the complexity of life,
It does.
but also to grapple with these really profound ethical questions.
It does.
So it demands our attention, our critical thinking, and our active engagement in shaping its future.
It does. It's a field that offers us hope, but also challenges. And we need to use this powerful tool wisely so we can create a future where biotechnology is a force for good in the world.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you to our listeners for joining us on this incredible exploration into the world of biotechnology.
It's been a pleasure.
Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep imagining the possibilities.
It's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you.
It's amazing to think about all we've discussed about biotechnology.
From those tiny genes to, wow, engineering whole organisms.
It's incredible how much it already impacts our lives.
Truly. The food we eat, the medicines, even the ethical questions.
You're right. We've focused a lot on biotechnology's potential,
Yeah,
but we can't forget the responsibility that comes with it.
absolutely not. We've mentioned ethical concerns along the way, but I think some key points need to be front and center in this discussion.
Agreed. Which ethical issues stand out as most important to you?
Unintended consequences are a huge concern.
Unintended consequences.
We're manipulating living organisms.
Right.
Incredibly complex systems we don't completely understand.
And that could have serious implications.
It could. Our interventions could have unforeseen effects.
Potentially harmful ones.
Exactly. So we have to be cautious and humble.
Humble, yeah.
Acknowledging our knowledge is limited.
It is.
And our actions have ripple effects
Gig time.
on ecosystems, even future generations.
That's a heavy thought.
It is. And we have to be mindful of possibly making existing inequalities worse.
Oh, well, that's an important point.
Biotechnology has great promise,
It does.
but we need to ensure everyone benefits.
Not just the privileged few.
Exactly. Access and equity are essential.
They are. Biotechnology can't be another dividing tool in society.
Absolutely not. Another concern is the commodification of life.
Commodification of life. What does that mean?
As we develop these sophisticated technologies, we need to be careful.
Okay. Yep.
Not to view living organisms, even humans, as mere commodities.
Right.
To be bought and sold, manipulated for profit.
That's a chilling thought.
It is.
We want biotechnology to enhance well-being, not devalue life.
Exactly. That's why regulation and oversight are crucial.
I was just thinking that. We need rules, guidelines,
The robust frameworks to guide these technologies' development.
to ensure they're used safely, ethically.
For all humankind's benefit.
But it's more than just rules, right?
It is.
We need open, honest discussions about biotechnology's impact,
Absolutely. Thoughtful, inclusive conversations.
involving everyone, not just scientists,
Policymakers, ethicists, the public.
everyone at the table.
To discuss values, risks, the future we want.
This isn't just a national conversation either.
It's global.
It affects everyone.
It does.
Our choices about biotechnology impact the whole world.
And future generations.
It's a lot to consider. Wow, what a journey this deep dive has been.
It has been incredible.
We explored so much.
So much potential.
Biotechnology's power to transform health.
And the ethical considerations we can't ignore.
From manipulating genes to engineering organisms.
Personalized medicine, even the idea of enhancing humans.
This field is just... There's so much excitement,
Yeah.
so much wonder,
There is.
but a heavy sense of responsibility too.
Absolutely.
Biotechnology is a powerful tool,
Like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
and guiding its development is on us.
To ensure it serves humanity's best interests.
Well said. As we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with two things.
Okay.
A sense of wonder at what's possible,
Absolutely.
but also a call to action. Biotechnology is amazing.
It is.
It makes us think about life's complexity and these big ethical questions.
Profound questions.
It demands our attention, our critical thinking, our active involvement.
It does. We have hope and challenges ahead, We have to use this tool wisely to create a future where biotechnology is a force for good.
A perfect way to end this. Thank you to everyone listening for joining us on this incredible journey into biotechnology.
It's been a pleasure.
Keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep imagining the possibilities.
It's been wonderful sharing this deep dive with you all.